on the rise, making that dough in the crypto paradigm. Watching it go, buying low, selling high. Riding the wave, I'm here to stay, living in the digital age. No banks, no fees, just decentralized. It's crypto paradise. Ooh. No banks, no fees.
Alrighty, good morning, surfers. Happy Thursday. It is October 16th, and we've got a great show lined up for you guys today. Stocks are pumping, gold's at all-time highs, and yet Bitcoin, ETH, still underperforming. This is testing my patience, guys. This is testing my fortitude. And I'm Mr. Patience. That's my middle, first, and last name. And this is still hard. When are we going to get out of the doldrums? I think we got some answers for you guys on today's show. We also came across some very bullish news as it relates to Ethereum, which we will cover. And once again, Nick was right on his prediction around BNB and Coinbase. And we'll get to that towards the end of the show here. But first of all, how are you doing today? Let's actually start with that, because I think we need to give ourselves a pat on the back. Around 24 hours ago, we were on this very live stream lamenting the fact that Coinbase, the biggest exchange, certainly in the United States, doesn't even list BNB. And then 2 hours after the live show, boom, here comes the announcement. So, I don't know, maybe Brian Armstrong listens to the show. Happy to see that listing happen.
You know, one or two coincidences is one thing. So it's either just intuition, gut guess, people watching in. I don't know. But this is like the 10th thing in the past couple months. Obviously, we were very early to predicting the Bitcoin and Ethereum spot ETFs. And then we predicted the Ethereum strategic reserves. It was a couple weeks later. You had Thomas Lee and Joe Lubin create those strategic reserves. We've talked about Richard Hart needing to get more active again. Then what do you know, a day later, he's on the thread asking people questions. We've talked about CZ, and what do you know? Everything just keeps playing out. And then yesterday, we talked about how it is dumb for Coinbase and Binance to be arguing, and it is dumb for Coinbase to be throwing stones while living in a glass house. Because why? They said, oh, you shouldn't charge projects for listings. You should just list good projects. Yet BNB, the third largest crypto in all the world, was not listed. And BSC Network, arguably the second largest network in all the world, was not listed. And Binance itself, arguably the largest exchange, was not supported either. What do you know? 4 hours later, they have announced that BNB is on the roadmap, and so is BSC Network support. Nobody's talking about the BSC Network support because they didn't particularly say that. But in order to list BNB, you have to support the network that it runs on. And as of now, BSC is not a supported network with Coinbase. So I believe when BNB gets listed, they'll also add BSC network support, and it will just be BNB, maybe USDT, and of course USDC support to allow on-ramps and on-ramps and off-ramps from Coinbase. And then let's see. I wake up this morning to CZ saying that Coinbase shouldn't just list BNB and support BSC network, but also list other BSC network tokens, as Binance has listed a plenty of good base tokens, solid projects over on their exchange. So now CZ's like, hey, you know, we twisted your arm. You're going to list BNB. You're going to support the BSC network. Now let's support other good projects on BSC network and not just try to support base tokens over on Coinbase. So we'll see how it all plays out. But we were just talking about it, just harping about it, going on a rant. The next day, here we go, BNB to be added to Coinbase. And the onboarding for Binance and Binance Network just got that much easier for U.S. citizens.
It's almost as if when you pay attention and you're in the trenches 24/7 for the past 8 years, you start to understand the industry. What a thought. What a concept. But congrats on that prediction and all the other ones we made over the past year or so here on this channel. We got more predictions coming for you guys. Most turn out to be right because it's not hard to see where this industry is going if you're in the trenches 24/7. I'm very glad they made up, sang a little kumbaya, hugged it out, and Brian Armstrong and CZ get along. It's time to get along, guys, for the good of the degens, for the good of the retail. We don't need you guys fighting. Let's come together.
I think
Support each other's exchange. You're already billionaires times 1,000. You made it. Let's bring those powers together for the good of everyone involved. So I'm very happy for that news to have dropped. And let's see what happens next. I do think they're going to list more than just BNB. I think they'll end up listing like Floki. They'll end up listing, I don't know, some of the big, any other big BSC projects coming down the pipeline. So I'm not worried about that at all. I'm just very happy to see this news drop.
Yeah, and talking about working together, Mr. There is no second best himself, Michael Saylor, on a keynote speech for Bitcoin, up here giving props to Thomas Lee as the most visible, influential spokesperson in the Ethereum ecosystem in the matter of months, maybe even weeks, giving props where props is due, onboarding institutional money into Ethereum and into crypto. And maybe he is waking up to Ethereum, or maybe he understands that if Ethereum does well, it brings more capital into MicroStrategy, into Bitcoin, and into crypto development as a whole.
Love to see this. Very happy these guys are getting along too. Hug it out, sing a little kumbaya. Why not? You know, what's good for Bitcoin is good for ETH, and what's good for ETH is good for Bitcoin. I mean, this is a small industry, right? We need to be working together to help onboard the next 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million users, rather than infighting with our little tribes. You know, BTC is the best, no, ETH's the best, so long. Forget all that. Stop fighting. Do what you can to bring new people in, and that's how we can win together, folks.
Yeah, and before we get into more news, let's look at the charts here, because you did talk about stocks going higher and gold going higher. Well, you can see here from live show yesterday, I need to raise this bar back up as NASDAQ continues to rally. Now, you're not out of the woods here. As long as this rally doesn't go to new all-time highs, this could just be an A down, a B up, and then you get a C down to that 24,000 level, or even as low as this moving average down here at 23.4. But I think this is a good trajectory, that there was this spook in the market around China and tariffs and what Trump is saying. And now Trump has been active, talking in the markets. Markets are reacting to his every words, and yet we continue to grind higher. And I think that is primarily because people understand that QE is beginning. There's another interest rate coming in less than 2 weeks. That these tariffs are not impactful in a negative light. That there will be some kind of agreement made between China and the United States at a global conference that occurs when? At the end of October and November 1st. And, you know, we see inflation back down. We see the economy doing okay. We see the golden era. But I think the biggest thing, too, on why everything is going up is kind of the debasement of the U.S. dollars, which you've talked about. When you price things in U.S. dollars, even though U.S. dollars is the best performing fiat in the world, ultimately, that fiat spending power keeps going down into the right due to M2 money supply, money printing, overspending, etc., which means that good assets that are pegged to that dollar valuation eventually go up and to the right. It's just the nature of the beast. It's the nature of inflation, and it's the nature of fiat.
You got to be investing in the financial markets, period. I don't care if you love AI, if you love gold, crypto, hopefully all three. You got to be invested in something because the fiat currencies of the world, and even if the dollar's the best performing one, it's still down 99% since, 100 years ago. So, I mean, you got to be investing in stuff, even if it's, $500 a month into a, IRA, retirement account. That's fine if you don't want to go super degen and get involved in crypto. I think you should take a little bit of risk if you're a young person. This is the best performing asset class ever. Bitcoin and Ethereum and a few other majors. So if you have that risk tolerance, get involved. But you got to be invested in something. Happy to see stocks running. Happy to see gold running. I don't own any gold other than a few random pieces of jewelry that I'm looking to sell now. Actually, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to sell it. But I'm waiting for my Bitcoin. I'm waiting for my Ethereum. Because this is getting a little frustrating here, Nick. I feel like I've been waiting for, I don't know how long, but it feels like an eternity. Is that the wrong way to look at it? Or I should be happy that we're $110,000 or $111,000 Bitcoin? I'm just getting greedy.
I mean, we've been here for a while, and we're heavy in alts, and we're heavy in speculative networks like Pulse Chain and BSC and things. So not everything is up. Really, the only things that are up is Bitcoin, BNB, and Ethereum itself, which is frustrating when you pride yourself on marketing services, advisory services, trying to find low-cap gems, trying to get in early pre-sale investments, and those things just haven't really produced the gains that we're used to or that we're seeing from the large caps. And talking about gold here, here's another one. I mean, this is the total opposite of a small cap, the largest financial instrument in the entire world. And you made the joke about selling jewelry, and you're like, oh, you're not going to do it. But what's actually crazy is there's Rolexes and APs and some of these watches that are now worth more smelted than they are remaining whole. I'm seeing on my TikTok and Facebook feed that some jewelers are deciding to actually melt down and part out their watches because gold value has gone up so high, and these are gold-based watches, whether they're 14K, 18 karat gold watches. You melt it down, you pull out the diamonds, you get rid of the bezels, you got the dial, whatever, and it's actually worth more in pieces and smelted over fire than it is to an end user looking to buy the watch, which if tells you anything, that maybe gold is getting overheated. The target of 3,900 to 4,000 with potential upside to 4,200 probably is a smart time to start taking some chips off the table when the top premier luxury watches are worth more in a fire pit than they are on your wrist.
Been meaning to get a Rolex. Maybe now's a good time to do that. I'll have to convince my wife that I can finally waste money on something stupid. But in any event, want to give a shout out to everyone who's tuned in. Good morning, good morning. Like, share, subscribe, absolutely. Good morning, meet Chapo. Good to see you guys. Yeah, we're just hanging out today. I mean, the market's not doing too much from a crypto standpoint. We do have some other stories to get to. I don't know if you have some charts you wanted to share.
Well, we're also going to talk about Ethereum as a whole here. We got BMNR that's slightly green today, back above $53 at $53.93. And we got SBT that's up 3% today, above $15 at $15.60. And what's been going on with these is they've had the big run, we bought the dip, and now they've been consolidating, kind of following in footsteps with Ethereum. And they're slowly accumulating more ETH, staking ETH, and earning more ETH. But why is SBT outperforming BMNR today? Well, that is because, I think it's right here, SBT is raising $76.5 million from selling 4.5 million shares at 17 per share. Well, why would anybody buy at 17 a share if they can go to the market and buy it right now for $15.60? So they're paying a premium, and that's because the institutional investor also has the 90-day option to buy another 4.5 million shares at $17.50, which would generate another $78.8 million. So this is the institutional investor that is betting that in 90 days from now, the price of Ethereum will be higher than it is now, causing the price of SBT to go higher than the premium they had to pay on this investment round. So they are taking about a 12 to 15% gamble that SBT and Ethereum prices will be higher than what they are paying in. And why is this good? We want people to take that bet. Number one, it shows you that institutional players think that SBT and Ethereum are underpriced and the next 3 months will be bullish. But number two, this initial 76.5 million and the following 78 million will be used to buy what? To buy more Ethereum off the open market. And SharpLink Gaming stakes nearly all of their Ethereum. In the past month, they've earned something like 454 ETH just from DeFi yield. So this is a step in the right direction. It's good to see SBT getting active. Obviously, we know Thomas Lee at Bitminer has been buying a ton. They're above 3 million Ethereum. SharpLink has not bought anything because their mantra is if there is a discount on stock to ETH holdings, they are only going to buy shares. If there is a premium, then they buy ETH, and they've kind of been in the neutral ground. But they have been staking to earn ETH, and now they're doing a raise that will give them fresh capital to buy up their own stock and to buy up more Ethereum.
This story reminds me of the mantra I love. Follow the smart money, guys. Follow the smart money. Don't follow the, PFP profiles on X. Could be some dude in his basement with $100 to his name telling you to sell everything because it's been 1,042 and a half days and 43 seconds since the previous all-time high, so you must sell now. Why not follow the guys with hundreds of millions of dollars on Wall Street who actually know what the hell they're doing? So follow the smart money, people. If they think Ethereum is higher in 90 days, my bet is it's going to be higher. I don't think a crash is coming in the next 90 days. I think more likely we are closer to that $7,000 mark that we've been talking about than, $3,000 ETH or $2,000. So follow the smart money. Don't follow the idiots on crypto Twitter, and you'll end up doing fine for yourself.
We do know we've given shit to Vitalik and the soy boys at the Ethereum Foundation for a long time. It seemed like when the Ethereum Spot ETF came, every single run that was occurring, Ethereum Foundation was selling millions of dollars of ETH on the open market for development costs. Well, now it does appear that Ethereum Foundation is taking a fresh 2,400 ETH using DeFi lender Morpho to earn some yield on that ETH. So maybe the yield that they start earning from this DeFi platform will be able to offset and cover costs, and they won't have to sell so much of the Ethereum Foundation holdings. Maybe they're waking up and being like, wow, we have sold now tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of ETH over the years from the Ethereum Foundation, and now institutions are getting into play, and ETH might go to 5K, 10K, 20K, 50K, 100K, and we are leaving a lot of money on the table for what we believe in for short-term dev costs. So, you found this article. I don't know what your thoughts are on about it. Again, it's only like $9.6 million or something like that. But, if you can earn 3, 5, 10% yield on that, that should be able to pay some dev costs along the way.
Yeah, man, love to see this. Hopefully it's the start of a trend. They don't need to sell. They have such a tremendous bag of ETH. I think the third highest ETH holdings, third or fourth, still even after Bitmine has gone on this tremendous buying spree, and SBET as well. They still have billions and billions worth of Ethereum. Why not put it to work staking it? Put it to work in a lending protocol, other DeFi protocols. Obviously generates you yield, allows you to pay out whatever development costs you're incurring, but it also bolsters the Ethereum ecosystem, right? It provides additional TVL to these products, which helps the overall Ethereum economy. So I hope this is the start of a trend. I don't want to see any more, we had to market sell 1,000 ETH. If you need to sell, at least do it OTC to Tom Lee or something. Don't go on an open market and dump it on us. But better yet, just stake it, use it in DeFi, using a lending protocol, generate yield, and that should be more than enough to pay your ongoing dev costs.
Yeah, and this kind of mantra resonates with other people. It says, facing criticism earlier this year over its routine sales of ETH to fund its operations, the nonprofit Ethereum Foundation announced a plan to move a portion of its treasury into DeFi protocols, beginning with 50,000 ETH. So this 2,900 ETH seemingly is just the start. They're going to move up to 50,000 ETH into other DeFi protocols. Again, I don't know if you should take that much risk, but I guess this is their thought. If they put the 50,000 ETH in other DeFi protocols, it does spur network activity, it supports other builders, other devs, and you probably earn more yield. So there is systematic risk there because that could get hacked. But I'm sure they're doing their own internal audits, they're making their best guess, and it does overall benefit the network more than them just taking that 50,000 ETH and staking it on their own protocol level, which would produce probably the least amount of yield and actually reduce yield for other market participants like Sharplink Gaming and Bitminers. So we'll see how it plays out. Nonetheless, I think it's the right move. I think they should have been doing it for years. Earn with that ETH, and then if you're earning more ETH, you can sell that. At least you're not touching your principal, or you can do kind of what Crypto Paradise does. We earn with DeFi yield. You can sell half of that yield. You can put 25% back into the business, 25% back into buying and burning Surf or your own token. Why not do that? If you make 100 ETH, why not stash 25 ETH, increase your and compound your capability of staking, sell 50% of it for overhead, and then have the other 25% for community decisions. I don't know why it has to be all in, all out with Ethereum Foundation, especially when they have so much capital, so much ETH tokens, and they can earn so much yield.
ETH Foundation, if you're listening, I think you guys need a new CFO. Nick knows what the hell he's doing. Take some advice from us here at Crypto Paradise and get your financial house in order. I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek, but very glad to see ETH sort of pivoting to this more sustainable, less dumpy means of generating money. I will say this, though, in ETH's favor, then we can switch subjects. They actually do use the development money for good. Now, I'm sure some of it's wasted. There's always going to be some degree of waste. But think of the upgrades Ethereum has undergone in the past year, 2 years, 3 years. There was a time when Ethereum was proof of work, right? When it first started, it was proof of work, similar to Bitcoin. Then, through the efforts of the army of developers building on top of Ethereum, they do need to get paid somehow. They switched to proof of stake. And then we had numerous other upgrades, right? We just had one, 3-4 months ago, allows you to stake less than 32 ETH to secure the network. There's another one coming in a few months called Fusaka, which is going to make the network faster and cheaper. So, they are using this money for the benefit of the network, which theoretically should cause the value of the underlying asset to appreciate. So good for investors too. But do it in a sustainable way, do it in a smart way, and it's a win-win.
All right, on to the next topic. Of course, with Richard Hart active again, we got to go into what did he just do This is something that Richard Hart has not done. I don't know if he's done it ever, to be honest. This could be a first. Now, I could be wrong, but it's been a very long time since I've ever seen this happen. Richard Hart is not only posting on his own Twitter and replying to people who reply to him, but now he is actually going and trying to extend his wings, trying to broaden his horizons. Obviously, we know CZ has been replying to Kraken and Coinbase about the listing of BNB, and Richard Hart replied to CZ. Richard Hart said, I kept building and building and building, would like to wake up to the support from industry peers. We also do know that Richard Hart asked when CZ went to prison, he was one of the few people who asked, hey, how do I get in contact with CZ? I want to write him a letter, a heartfelt letter. CZ is taking a bullet for the entire crypto industry, and he's doing the right thing, and that did happen. So did CZ get the letter from Richard? Is there a relationship here? Could this reach out by Richard Hart finally be him understanding that maybe he does need to suck middleman D and embrace other individuals, other founders into crypto rather than trying to isolate himself? That's a big potential. I replied to it with @CZ. If you notice, CZ does follow me. That doesn't mean that CZ sees everything I says. Every once in a while, he likes it, retweets it, or comments on it. But I think it does help me a little bit to maybe he sees and kind of gives recognition to what I said. I said, @CZ, I don't know the inner workings or your relationship status. Maybe they don't like each other. I don't know. As a day one BSC user, I see similar potential in Pulse Chain and some of its builders. Many protocols and network tokens feature built-in benevolence through buy and burns, LP additions, and DAO structures. Consider giving the network support and continue doing what made Binance successful, being early to spot potential in others and supporting industry leaders as a whole. Binance got to where it is because finds the gems in the rough, not just those who build on Binance or build on BSC, but supports other industry leaders, supports KOLs and influencers, follows me. I mean, I'm a nobody when it comes to this, and supports builders. When they see innovation, they want to be first to it because they understand, A, maybe it can benefit BSC, B, maybe it can generate volume on their exchange and get fees, which benefits BNB. And then C, CZ always has this mantra of, hey, I've made it, Binance has made it, but if crypto's going to win, it can't just be Binance and CZ. We need other winners in the ecosystem. And maybe, just maybe, with BSC getting the adoption on Coinbase, maybe CZ will open up his heart and give some adoption to Pulse Chain.
Let's go. Let's go. Great work, sir. Hopefully CZ sees it, takes some action. But in all seriousness, I think this is sort of a continuation of a story we highlighted earlier, which is builders who are maybe previously rivals, previously maybe didn't like each other, competitors, whatever, are now coming together to help build the industry. I attribute that largely to the hands-off approach that the new SEC and the Donald Trump administration has been taking, right? Before Biden came in, tried to kill basically all of crypto, you couldn't list a BNB. You didn't want to risk, associating with a Richard Hart who had a case against him or what have you. But now, we're open. We're open for business. The regulators are embracing this industry. We can all work together. So why not? Why wouldn't BNB, or certainly, if you're talking centralized exchanges, if Binance doesn't want to go first, maybe be a Bybit, maybe a KuCoin. I don't know, but someone needs to just open the doors to Pulse Chain here and decide to list PLS and Hex and maybe a handful of others, just to start, right? There's money to be had. There's a large, passionate cohort of community members in Pulse Chain who would probably love to trade these assets on centralized exchanges. So be a first mover, take a little bit of risk. Richard Hart already beat the SEC. He's demonstrated that he's not a scammer. If he was a scammer, he would have effed off long ago, guys. Just be honest. So I think time to embrace Pulse Chain, get it listed on at least one centralized exchange, and eventually I do think it can reach Binance.
This is a pretty crazy thread. You got CZ here, you got Justin Sun, you got Coinbase, you got Kraken, and you got Richard Hart all on that thread. That's a pretty wild thread there.
Gotta love Twitter. Gotta love it. We can just talk to these billionaires like we know them. Such a cool time to be alive, folks. No doubt about that. So Hex is bored. We're bored. Let's be bored together, guys. Let's be bored together. There's always news. There's always things happening in the background. I know it's a little bit boring from a price performance standpoint, but there's always, at least in this bull cycle with Donald Trump at the helm, there's always positive news when it comes to crypto and adoption and so on. I just read earlier today that Peter Thiel's bank, Erebor, is going to be approved. It's a Bitcoin-based bank. I believe that's getting approval. Maybe we can pull up that story on Erebor and Peter Thiel. That's another example of. It's boring, but hey, there's adoption and there's progress happening behind the scenes, folks.
Isn't Peter Thiel like the founder of PayPal or something?
Founder of PayPal. He's a billionaire. He's in with Elon.
That was something that
Trump
happened. PayPal's stablecoin minted like 300 trillion Pi USD yesterday, and then obviously that was caught and they deleted, burned all those. Maybe they're testing the functionality. Maybe somebody fat fingered a couple extra zeros there. When I saw that, people are like, market's about to pump. It's like 300 trillion is more than all the money in existence. They gotta have at least. I know regulation is open now, but you at least gotta have the 1-for-1 backing. All right.
Yeah, I saw that story. It was definitely a guy who fat fingered that deployment of those stable coins. And they even admitted to it. They said, hey, it was a mistake. We made a mistake, all this. And they burned, all the excess. But, yeah, funny little snafu there when it comes to PayPal's stablecoin. But, yeah, Peter Thiel, man, he's one of the richest, most powerful men in Silicon Valley. And he's building on a Bitcoin bank called Erebor. That's getting approval. So, it's boring. Price ain't going up right now, at least if you're in Bitcoin and Ethereum and alts. If you're in stocks and gold, you're sitting pretty. But progress is happening, innovation is happening before our very eyes, folks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, I don't know what's going on with Erebor. I'm not going to use Erebor probably, but it'll be interesting to see in the next 5 years to decade from now, what has happened to the financial system. Obviously, I think crypto and blockchain is going to be embraced, but when I say what has happened to the financial system is like, what happens to these big banks? What happens to the U.S. Bank, Bank of America, and the list goes on? Like, do they still exist? Do they embrace? Do they adapt fast enough? Or is the banking system going to be flipped on its head and you have Erebor banking or grayscale banking or self-custody or Coinbase becomes a bank, PayPal becomes its own bank? Like, what happens to the big institutional financial players? Because remember, the modern banking system can lend your money at like a 10-to-1 ratio. I don't really like fractionalized reserve currency, but if you hit them and they just start failing and these more decentralized banking infrastructure becomes the new norm, like how does that uprise USD itself, or does that create instability in the economy because US banks, Bank of America, all these big national banks kind of start failing?
I don't think it's going to get to that point. I mean, those banks are so ingratiated in the economy. They're so important to the economy. Everyday Americans have billions and billions sitting in deposits. Yeah, maybe sure. They're being lent out with, using fractional reserve banking. But I don't think those banks are going to fail. What is much more likely to happen is those banks will slowly but surely start to embrace new technology to sort of undergird their inner workings. They'll rely on blockchain to facilitate payments, perhaps rather than the SWIFT system, for example. They may allow you to deposit Bitcoin right along your USD into your Bank of America account, right? But they're not. Those banks aren't going anywhere. They're not going to die. Maybe a few small banks will go under because they took excess risk or whatever. We saw that happen with Silicon Valley Bank and others. But Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, they're not going anywhere. They're adopting this technology, or embrace this technology. But you also have to realize, too, there's a lot of Americans who, for whatever reason, they are at least presently averse to using anything related to crypto and blockchain. So we need to get to the point where crypto and blockchain are sort of like the hidden rails that provide the underlying architecture for what goes on at banks and financial systems, rather than it being an overt, oh yeah, here's your wallet, you got to write down your seed phrase. Vast majority of Americans will not, and others around the world, will not go so far as to create their own DeFi wallet and their MetaMask or Phantom. But if the financial ecosystem starts to rely on blockchain kind of behind the scenes in a hidden way, they'll be using the stuff, they just won't know it. So that is my prediction. Big banks ain't going anywhere, but they will embrace and start to use blockchain.
Yeah, you can tell it's kind of boring out here just because there's less comments on Twitter and YouTube than normal. Is there any other projects you want us to look at? Any charts? Anything going on? Everything's pretty much lockstep with what we've been seeing. Ethereum is up 0.36% today. Bitcoin is up. All right, Bitcoin's actually down 0.31. So Ethereum having about a 0.6% swing, outperforming Bitcoin here. And we see Bitcoin dominance dropping a little bit. Bitcoin is back to 110.4. 110.4 after the washout overnight that sent it back to 109. It did catch itself this morning on the back of U.S. strength and stock market. But I mean, Bitcoin just staying in this same range, kind of floundering. Moment of decision. And I have been, somebody tagged me. It's like, wow, Nick, you're one of the few like bullish people remaining on the timeline. Everybody is bearish. And I said, good. That means I have a higher probability of being right. When everybody is bearish, everybody's doom and gloom. Everybody's now calling for $75,000 Bitcoin. Now, can Bitcoin go lower from 110 here? Sure. But, I mean, everybody now calling for 75K. If you're so certain on that, why don't you take 100x levered short? Because that is a huge drop from here. That's like 30% drop on Bitcoin here, when traditionally Bitcoin should be having a good Q4 or at least a good Q1 of 2026.
Everyone bearish is in shorts, or they've already sold out all their Bitcoin. That's what you need to understand. Everyone's talking their bag or lack of bag. So, if you don't have any more Bitcoin because you sold out, you think the market cycle's over, you're rooting for lower because you can't wait to buy back in on the dip. Or you're short, maybe not 100x, but you're short. You're in a short position. You want to make money off that trade. So, just take everything with a grain of salt. I don't really listen to the talking heads on crypto Twitter, the PFPs that are just anonymous people. They don't know what the hell they're talking about half the time. And they're just guessing on things based on, it's been 1,048 days and 42 seconds since the previous all-time high. Therefore, the crash is coming. Like, that's a nonsensical and completely idiotic take. It completely ignores Fed policy, macro situation. It ignores all the actual facts on the ground. So I don't take any of that with any degree of seriousness. I like to look at the macro big picture. One story that caught my eye this morning, you're talking about how it's boring out there, and I suppose it is a little bit boring, but Bitcoin's hash rate just hit an all-time high. Bitcoin hash rate's an interesting sort of data point to look at. That's how difficult it is to mine a Bitcoin, how much energy it takes to mine it, right? And there's normally a bit of a lag, bit of a delay between the price performance of Bitcoin and the hash rate of Bitcoin. And if you believe Elon Musk, Bitcoin is valued because of energy, which I do believe that is the case, among other reasons, then you should look at hash rate to determine what you think the fair market value of Bitcoin should be. Apparently, if you go by hash rate, Bitcoin's fair market value is $180,000.
Sheesh. I mean, if Bitcoin is going to follow suit with gold like it has in the past, that's probably where Bitcoin ends up. Remember, there's usually 60 to 80 day delay, 60 to 90 day delay for Bitcoin to gold, and gold has just hit 4,250, even above the targets of $4,200 that we had in mind. So come on, Bitcoin, start catching up. M2 money supply up, gold up, stocks up, Bitcoin still sideways and consolidating. What do we got going on here?
Yeah, this gold run. I mean, on one hand, I'm bullish on it. On the other hand, you start to get a little concerned if you see gold go too much higher. Not because anything related to Bitcoin, but it's like, geez, has everyone lost that much faith in the U.S. dollar? And, what our policies and so on, that they're just fleeing into gold at this rate? No, I don't really think that's the case. I think a lot of it's just FOMO. Average Joes see the price go up and they want a piece of the action. So that will happen to Bitcoin. But gold's been on this tremendous run. I saw photos of people lining up outside, the banks, or maybe it was a gold shop or something in Australia, just couldn't wait to get their hands on gold. Kind of a crazy time to be alive. We got Road in the house.
That is crazy.
Let's talk about Bear AI. Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about some low-cap gems. Why not? So we've helped to launch a number of low-cap gems on Pulse Chain in the past few weeks here. And one of them is Bear AI, a project we've been working with for a long time, founded by a guy named Ron. But basically what they're building is a suite of AI tools that allow you to evaluate the market. If you're an influencer, you can use their forthcoming influencer dashboard to sort of enhance your reach. I believe they have some other AI-based products in the pipeline as well. These are these AI-driven reports around projects and tokens. So yeah, it's an AI tooling project, and I think what you're relying on is those products getting some adoption, having some paying customers, and then money flowing back into token through the revenue they're generating.
Yeah, and obviously, market for altcoins is down and kind of floundering. Market for Pulse Chain in general is down and kind of floundering. But they launched at a 15K market cap. They injected $8,000 into the Pulse Chain network for their initial LPs, and they have a token tax system that is buying and burning their own token. It's buying and burning Surf, and it's incentivizing bear holders. So we'll see how it progresses. Let's see what happens when Pulse Chain catches a bid. Let's see what happens as they get more users onto their products. It's just like with anything. The cryptos that survive are those who have products, revenue, and users. And this one could potentially have all of them. And then with the good token economic system, you're going to see deflation on the token. You're going to see support from other projects. And again, we'll see what happens with users moving forward. And we're going to dive into more of their products. Hopefully, do an interview with the founder and see what he's got up his sleeve. Very hard worker, very good developer. Look at what he's built. Something that most 99% of other projects don't even have the capability to build some of these AI products. And CZ himself said that AI is going to be a narrative that continues on in this market cycle. I get a little echo on my side here from you, Ian. But I think AI catches a bid, and we'll see what happens when Pulse Chain and AI cross paths. And again, real products. And if he can build these products, he can build some more. So take a look. Hop on here. Check out the features. See if there's any of the products that you like. We need to dive more into it ourselves because we do have some Bear AI tokens. So we might as well get into the incentive structure and earn with those Bear AI by utilizing these products. And also these AI reports could be some really good content for Crypto Paradise, for my own personal Twitter, to generate AI dashboards and AI reports on various meme coins and crypto projects within the crypto ecosystem, from Bitcoin all the way down to the Bear AI.
Yeah, I think what you want to see from projects at this stage of the market where we're not having an alt season, low caps are doing nothing. Hell, even the big caps, Bitcoin and Ethereum aren't doing anything right now. So what can you expect the low caps to do? But what I like to see and what you want to see is just the level of activity coming out of the project. You want to see the Twitter active. You want to see the founders setting up partnerships with maybe influencers or maybe other projects. You want to see the project continue to build out product, right? You want to see them doing different community engagement and incentive activities, rating, giveaways, whatever the case may be. You just want activity, because what you would expect to then see when the market finally does turn around is these projects that are active, they will outperform the ones that were being lazy or gave up, right? This is not to say everything is going to run and Bear's going to do 100x. Nobody truly knows that. But I love to see the activity levels that Ron's putting out. He's working very hard. We just had a call with him yesterday, setting up some new partnerships and some marketing. So we'll see how that all impacts everything. But the level of the Twitter, you can't complain about that, can you?
Yeah, very quality posts, reaching out to other projects, coming up with good memes. So, you can't ask for really anything else. Now, people be like, well, why isn't the token mooning then? Like we said, the anything that's really showing strength in the altcoin market is, being I got an echo still from you, I believe, Ian. Is when there's self-injection from the founders themselves or the products themselves buying up the tokens. And that's not a bad thing. You can get token supply, you can get momentum, you can get green candles, which is great marketing. But if you're not doing that, most of the altcoins are just not doing well. So we need alt season to happen. We need Ethereum over 5,000. We need Pulse Chain to catch a bid. But again, with projects like this, it's like, look, the activity looks good. The memes look good. He's been working on this for a long time. Could have thrown out a token at any point, but he waited. And I like the token economics. I like the products. And we got to be a user of what we preach as well. So we need to dive into these products. We need to use them. And I think it will provide a good tool for some social media marketing on our side, because some of the dashboards look really good. And being able to just screen grab those and make commentary on those, I think saves me a lot of due diligence and research. Let AI do the work and let it get presented to the masses.
I think everyone's bemoaning why are altcoins not going up? Why is no one buying? Like, are you buying? I know Roan's bought a bag. Good for you, Roan. And I know our Surf Down members probably bought some Bear at the time of the launch to get in super duper early. When you get in very, very early, you're going to be up even on the dip. Right, I think the initial market cap was like $8,000. Now it's at 40. So you got in early, you're still up. But most people are just not buying alts right now. Even yourself, viewer, you're probably not buying alts right now. You're waiting for confirmation of a reversal. You're waiting maybe to get some more dry powder. Maybe you're in some pre-sales, your money's locked up. Or maybe you're in a bag that you love, you have high conviction, but the price is down from where you bought it. You don't want to sell at a loss. So this is where we are in the market. There isn't a lot of fresh capital, not a lot of new buyers. Patience, 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 patience. That's really all we can say at this point. I know it's not fun to hear, but it's what you need to survive in these markets.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Ethereum here. It's hard to be, have FOMO for altcoins when Ethereum's sitting here at 39.85, back below $4,000, and this is with it outperforming Bitcoin today. So we'll see what happens. Remember, we were only less than a week from the biggest liquidation crisis in crypto ever in history. You can't expect momentum, morale to be back after such a big sell-off. So we'll see what happens. We're leaning bullish for the remainder of this year and into 2026. Just because we are bullish on the macro, the swing trade, doesn't mean that prices in the short term can't go lower. I'm just not in the camp of saying the top is in or Bitcoin's going to 75,000 or the next bear market is here. I'm not in that camp, and that's what a lot of the feed is in the camp of. I'm in the camp of bullish Q4, overall bullish leading into 2026, and we'll feel it out as we go because I believe in the extending cycle with QE and everything going on. And that's why we're trying to remain long, or we're doing trades on trading bags and keeping hodl bags. You can see here on the chart, sold Ethereum higher, bought it back cheaper twice, sold 50% of our bag up here, and now only have a 50% long trade on Ethereum, have no trade on Bitcoin, and of course we have positions across the board on Pulse Chain with smaller assets. We also closed our trade on Pengu for 68% gain, and we took some profits on Peacock. So we are taking profits if you're in our private groups, if you're tuning into the live shows. But overall, for the next swing trade, for the next 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, we are bullish on crypto and Bitcoin, and we believe there's a lot of institutional adoption coming, and there has been no new retail adoption at all in quite some time.
That's what we need to see. We need to see retail back in. We need more than a 3-day pump and a 3-day meme season over on Binance to get retail back excited about this industry. It's just a fact. So I think if it wasn't for that leverage flush out, perhaps if it wasn't for this trade war FUD, we would be at $130,000 Bitcoin as we speak here today. But the leverage flush out happened. Perhaps it was needed. You could argue that was a necessary sort of prerequisite to the next run up. That seems like a reasonable take. And I also think you need this trade war uncertainty to sort of resolve itself. We do have that meeting coming up at the end of the month here. I don't think China or the U.S. want a trade war, but they're just sort of saber rattling, and there's a big meeting of the Chinese Communist Party at the end of the month, and I think Xi Jinping was sort of, I need to, take a swing here and be a little bit aggressive. So he came out with this rare earth metal sort of monopoly policy. We need to get these things resolved. We need the Fed to step in, cut rates. That is all going to happen too. By the way, some bullishness popping up on my feed. 0.5%, or 50 basis point, I should say, cut. Perhaps coming on the next Fed meeting because the labor market's looking much weaker than I think a lot of people thought. That would really save our butts. Even if we get the 25 basis point, we're fine. Anyway, my point is this. Any number of catalysts can switch positive. We have a little bit of, let's call them headwinds right now from these trade wars, from the excessive leverage that was in the system, hadn't been just washed out. Get these things resolved, get a couple tailwinds, and we're flying back towards all-time highs, folks.
I think that's pretty much it. Roan over here does say Bear AI is one of those 1000x possibilities if and when Pulse Chain starts moving. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the network core tokens going up helps all assets on that network due to LP bonding, due to morale, momentum on that chain, and due to profits on the chain. Again, like Richard Hart has said, like Crypto Amaru has said, people don't like selling things that they're convicted in for cheaper than they paid for them, which means their capital gets locked up. They don't have any extra capital to get into other products, platforms, or projects, even if it is on Pulse Chain or not. So we'll see what happens with the Surf token, with PTGC, with Bear AI, with so many other projects and platforms that are working and building on Pulse Chain. They need a little love from Pulse Chain Network themselves. Maybe they get a little love from CZ. Come on, CZ. Support Pulse Chain, embrace Richard Hart, and get him back in the game. Another brilliant mind in crypto that has been kind of dormant due to the SEC, Interpol, and kind of been gate kept out of the markets. I think having his banter with Charles Hoskinson back, with CZ back, with Justin Sun back, only benefits the crypto ecosystem. And now maybe we have Brian Armstrong being a Chad, saying, you know what, let's embrace BSC and BNB, and let's preach what we sow.
Well, they are launching base tokens, so they're leading into their degen side over at Coinbase. That's coming, I believe, sometime in October. Even I don't know that it's coming soon. At least the rumors that I'm hearing. So good for them. That might inject a little bit of positivity back in the market. But going back to Roan's comment on Barry, I mean, 1,000x would bring its market cap to 40 million, if I'm not mistaken. That is possible, I suppose, if their products get a lot of adoption, if they start to generate money, buying back the token, etc., or if we have an insane alt season. But 100x seems very within the realm of possibility, even if things just go averagely well. You're then talking about a $4 million market cap from 40K. That seems still very low, and that would require, obviously alt season, risk on, Richard Hart stepping in, doing some things right, Pulse Chain pumping as a whole chain. I think 4 million is still pretty conservative if those stars align.
And before we head off here, a little bit of bullish sentiment here. B. Riley initiates coverage on BMNR and SBET. They're raising price targets. A $90 price target of BMNR, which is 67% upside from here. A $32 price target of SBET, which is 111% from here. Higher. So in the midst of morale, momentum, and really the charts looking ugly for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and crypto, you do have now B. Riley talking about and covering BMNR and SBET, Ethereum Strategic Reserve companies with much higher price objectives. And the only way the prices of these assets go higher is if the underlying Ethereum price goes higher as well. They're not going to go up in price if Ethereum flounders or goes down just based off of ETH yield. They need ETH prices higher for things to go higher. So that means that B. Riley inadvertently thinks that Ethereum has not topped, the cycle is not over, and Ethereum prices are just getting started.
Well, just remind yourself what always happens when there's a dip. The high conviction investors, now comprised mostly of Wall Street money, come in and they buy the dip. And then once there's been a floor established, a consolidation period, then they rely on their market makers to pump the price. And then retail gets all excited. They buy in, they buy the tops. And that's how guys in Wall Street, and that's how the whales in crypto make their money, right? They buy the dips, they hodl, and they wait for the next pump. That's what's happening now. That's the phase that we're in. Smart money is accumulating, and they're waiting for the pump. I think you should too.
I just want to give a shout out to KR the Ghost and Panos. They have a Pulse Chain Spaces going on. Those guys are literally in Spaces for Pulse Chain. It's got to be like 12 hours a day. I go in there, like I see it now. I might go in there, talk for an hour. I go do vending machines or sell stuff on eBay or edit videos for Crypto Paradise or Learn Crypto, and then hop back on Twitter, and they're still in the Spaces. I mean, that is unbelievable how long they sit in those Spaces, talking Pulse Chain, talking crypto. Shout out to those guys. I mean, grinding for their bags and trying to bring the communities together.
Dude, the passion in the Pulse Chain community, I mean, maybe it's because, I'm now in Pulse Chain and Surf's launched on Pulse Chain on their project, so my feed is, predominantly Pulse Chain. But I have a feeling that if I was invested in, a few SUI assets and followed a few SUI projects, I don't think I'd see the level of passion and conviction from those community members, or an Aptos, or a Polygon, or an Arbitrum, or even a Base. I don't see a strong community in a lot of these other chains. BNB is a different story, by the way. BNB has a lot of passionate people. But Pulse Chain, my goodness. I mean, these are die-hard supporters spending all day in a Spaces. Can you imagine? So shout out to those guys. Shout out to
the guy I was talking about here.
Things to happen, stars to align for the chain to start pumping, but I think everything is set up very well for that.
Yeah, this is the guy I was talking about here. They got 74 people in the Spaces already that they just started 7 minutes ago. But look at the Spaces yesterday. They ran the Spaces for 7 hours and 14 minutes straight. That is an entire workday. They are taking their phone into the shower, onto the shitter, into the grocery store, evangelizing Pulse Chain and various assets that launch on there. So shout out to KR the Ghost if you're watching, or Panos, or if anybody is in the Spaces, let them know that we're giving them a shout out, because that is wild dedication. On it for almost 8 hours yesterday, and now they just started 7 minutes ago. How long do you think they talked today, guys? That's pretty wild to see. Even though the markets are red, even though the markets are boring and sideways, they're finding something to talk about over there in these Spaces.
Well, this is how you make it, right? I'm not saying everyone has to host 8-hour Spaces, But you have to stay engaged. You have to stay convicted. You have to stay paying attention, even when the market is boring. Otherwise, you end up like, I don't know, my no-coiner friends who only start paying attention to crypto and only start caring about crypto when Bitcoin is gone already on a 3-month massive uptrend, and they're buying all our bags that we bought in for 10x lower. So don't be that guy. Don't be the cannon fodder. Don't be the exit liquidity. Be the people that stayed locked in, paying attention. We're in the trenches, even when the market was slow, boring, and times were tough, and you will eventually be rewarded for that.
It looks like Joe Lubin has confirmed. So we talked about SBT and their raise, and we thought they were actively trying to raise that money. And Joe Lubin has confirmed that the first 76.5 million has indeed been raised, with the possibility of another 79 million in the next 90 days. So good to see. It isn't going to send Ethereum to the moon, but I do like 76.5 million in the hands of Joe Lubin and SharpLink Gaming, who have a history of either buying their own stock share or buying Ethereum. That's why we own SBT. That's why we're up big on SBT, and that's why we think SBT will go much higher, even into the triple digits per stock share, in my opinion, with the rise of Ethereum the remainder of this year and into 2026. I don't have the power to stop the live show, so we will have to wait for Crypto Armor to get back to wrap it up. But we're going to stay active. We're going to stay working for your bags in the trenches behind the scenes, trying to provide value to Surf, trying to provide value to Pulse Chain, trying to pump up assets that were talked about by being live, by talking the fundamentals, by talking the macros, and by hopefully bringing some gains to the Crypto Paradise community.
That's what it's all about, boys and girls. You got to work. You got to work even when it's hard. Let's not pretend we're out here in a coal mine. I mean, this isn't that difficult. But yeah, look, stay locked in, guys. Stay convicted. Stay paying attention. The market will eventually shift. Nothing goes up forever and nothing goes down forever. So we will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. And until then, we will